It was just another evening in the bustling, high-end restaurant where Alicia worked as a waitress, until she noticed something that made her stomach turn. Robert Hayes, the billionaire CEO of a tech empire, was dining with his stunning girlfriend, Isabella. But Alicia couldn't ignore the obvious signs of betrayal. The chemistry between Isabella and a mysterious man across the room was too apparent to miss. With a heavy heart, Alicia decided to speak up, warning Robert about his girlfriend's infidelity. She never expected that one simple act of honesty would turn her life upside down. The next day, Alicia received a call from Robert, a call that would change everything. He wasn't angry. He wasn't vengeful. Instead, he made her an offer that would make most people's jaws drop. She didn't know it yet, but that conversation would lead her into a world she had only dreamed of. It was another busy evening at the upscale restaurant. The hum of conversation filled the air, mingling with the clatter of silverware and the low sizzle of steaks on the grill. In the corner of the room, tucked away from the main dining area, sat a couple who had become regulars at the restaurant. The man was none other than CEO Robert Hayes, one of the wealthiest men in the city, known for his ruthless business practices and commanding presence. His girlfriend, Isabella, was strikingly beautiful. Her long, dark hair and flawless skin turned heads every time she walked through the door. For most of the staff, Robert was just another VIP customer, a wealthy businessman who expected the finest service and treated waiters as if they were invisible. Isabella, however, was different. She was kind to the staff, often chatting with the servers and even tipping generously. But there was something about their dynamic that always made Alicia uneasy. Alicia had been working at the restaurant for years, and in all her time there, she had seen a lot of wealthy men and their beautiful companions. But something about Robert and Isabella seemed off. Alicia was a smart woman, and she had a knack for reading people. She knew when something wasn't right, and tonight, as she watched Robert and Isabella interact, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She didn't know what it was, but she sensed that Isabella wasn't as faithful as she appeared. Robert seemed distracted, his gaze flicking nervously to his phone, while Isabella's attention was elsewhere, focused on a man sitting a few tables away. Alicia didn't want to believe it at first, but as the night went on, her suspicions grew stronger. She had seen the way Isabella's eyes lingered on the man across the room. She had seen the small, secretive smiles exchanged between them when they thought no one was looking. It was clear now. Isabella was cheating on Robert, and Alicia knew she couldn't just let it slide. The decision to confront Robert wasn't an easy one. She had seen the power he wielded, the way people trembled when he walked into the room. He was a billionaire, a man who could crush anyone in his path without a second thought. But Alicia wasn't the kind of woman to stay silent when something didn't sit right with her. As she walked toward their table, her heart was pounding. Robert was engrossed in conversation with Isabella, and the tension in the air was palpable. Alicia approached with her usual calm professionalism, but inside, she was a mix of nerves and determination. She had to do this, for Robert's sake and for her own peace of mind. "Excuse me, Mr. Hayes," Alicia said, her voice steady but firm. Robert looked up, his eyes cold and calculating as always. He didn't recognize her at first, but there was something in her tone that made him pay attention. "I need to speak with you for a moment," she continued, her gaze flicking briefly to Isabella, who was suddenly very still. Robert raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Alicia took a deep breath and stepped forward, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I don't mean to intrude, but I think you should know something about your girlfriend," she said, glancing briefly at Isabella. "She's been spending time with someone else. I'm not sure what kind of relationship you two have, but from what I've observed tonight, I don't think it's as exclusive as you think." For a moment, there was only silence. Alicia could feel Isabella's eyes burning into her, and Robert's expression shifted from curiosity to something darker, something that made Alicia's stomach drop. "I don't know what you're talking about," Robert said, his voice low. "Are you accusing my girlfriend of something?" Alicia stood her ground, unflinching. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything, Mr. Hayes. I'm just telling you what I've seen. I think you deserve to know the truth." The words hung in the air, and for a moment it seemed like time stopped. Robert was silent, his eyes narrowing as he processed what Alicia had said. Isabella too was frozen, her face pale as she stared at Alicia, her lips pressed together in a tight line. Finally, Robert stood up from the table, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He turned toward Isabella, his face a mask of anger. "Is this true?" he demanded. Isabella hesitated for a moment, then looked away, unable to meet his gaze. The silence that followed was deafening. Alicia could see the guilt in Isabella's eyes, the way she avoided Robert's stare, the way her hands trembled slightly. It was all the confirmation Robert needed. Without saying another word, Robert turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving Isabella sitting there, her face flushed with embarrassment and shame. Alicia watched him go, her heart still racing. She had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was for certain. She had just changed the course of both her life and Isabella's. The restaurant was filled with the usual buzz, but Alicia couldn't focus on the familiar sounds of clinking glasses and soft conversations. Her mind was racing, her thoughts consumed by what had just happened. She had warned Robert Hayes, told him the truth about his girlfriend Isabella, and now she felt the weight of her actions settle in. She had done what she felt was right, but the repercussions of what she'd just set in motion were far from clear. What would happen to Isabella? What would happen to her own life now that she had taken such a bold step? Alicia had worked in the restaurant business long enough to know how quickly things could spiral out of control, especially when it came to the kind of people who could afford to eat at places like this. Robert Hayes wasn't just another customer. He was a billionaire, the CEO of a tech empire, a man whose presence alone could shift the atmosphere of any room. And now she had gone and exposed a weakness, revealing something that could change the dynamic of his entire life. As the evening wore on, Alicia tried to go about her duties as usual. She cleared plates, served drinks, and attended to the needs of the other patrons, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Robert and Isabella. She wondered if he had already confronted her, if he'd kicked her out, or worse, if he had chosen to ignore the truth and pretend everything was fine. Alicia couldn't imagine how it must have felt for Robert. A man who had everything, wealth, power, influence, and yet there he was sitting across from a woman who had betrayed him. The longer Alicia worked that night, the more anxious she became. She hadn't expected things to unfold the way they had. When she warned Robert, she thought he might brush her off or dismiss her as just another waitress with an overactive imagination. Instead, she had shaken his world. The weight of that realization made her chest tighten. She hadn't expected a personal connection to form, but now, after having been part of this seismic shift in Robert's life, Alicia felt like she had opened a door that couldn't be closed again. As her shift finally ended, she walked outside into the cool night air, the bright city lights blurring around her. The tension in her shoulders began to ease as she took a few deep breaths, trying to shake the nerves that had built up over the evening. She didn't know what would happen next, but she couldn't dwell on it forever. She had made a decision, and now it was time to live with the consequences. The next morning, Alicia was sitting in her small apartment, sipping coffee and reading through her emails when her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. At first she didn't think much of it, but then she saw the name attached to the message. Robert Hayes. Her heart skipped a beat. She opened the message cautiously. "Alicia, I'm not sure what your intentions were last night, but I appreciate your honesty. I've taken the time to think it through. Meet me at the restaurant at 6 p.m. tonight. I'll explain everything." Alicia's fingers froze on the screen. She couldn't believe it. Robert wanted to meet again. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was he angry? Was he thanking her? Had he finally confronted Isabella about the betrayal? She had no idea what to expect, but one thing was for sure, she couldn't back out now. This was the moment that would change everything. That evening, Alicia arrived at the restaurant a little early, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation that gripped her, each passing minute making her more nervous. She had been through many difficult situations at the restaurant, but nothing compared to the uncertainty she felt now. When Robert walked in, he was alone. His presence was commanding, as always, but there was a sense of weariness about him, as though the weight of the world had just been placed on his shoulders. He looked different, not the confident CEO she was used to seeing in boardrooms and press conferences, but a man whose life had been rocked to its core. Alicia stood up from the table and met him halfway. He didn't offer his hand immediately. Instead, he simply looked at her as if searching for something in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," Robert said, his voice steady but lacking the usual bravado. "I'm not here to make this easy for either of us. But you need to know that what you did last night was something I didn't expect. I thought you were just another waitress, someone who'd never speak out of turn. But you did. And now I can't ignore what you've shown me." Alicia wasn't sure how to respond. She had expected anger, maybe even a confrontation. But there was none of that. Instead, Robert seemed almost grateful, as if he recognized the value in what she had done, even if it hurt him. "I wasn't trying to make things harder for you," Alicia said, choosing her words carefully. "I just thought you had the right to know. I know what it's like to be taken advantage of, and I didn't want you to be in the dark." Robert's eyes softened, and for the first time, he looked at Alicia with something resembling understanding. "I don't know if I can ever forgive Isabella for what she's done, but I do appreciate that you gave me a chance to confront the truth before it was too late." Alicia nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over her. She hadn't expected him to thank her, let alone see her in a new light. But something about this moment felt like a turning point, both for him and for her. "I'm not here to tell you what to do," Alicia continued, "but I hope you find the answers you're looking for. And if you need to talk to someone who understands, I'm here." Robert leaned back in his chair, contemplating her words. "I think I might need your help in ways I hadn't considered," he said slowly. "You've shown me that not everything is what it seems, and that's something I need to take seriously. But for now, I think I've made enough decisions for one night. I'm going to handle this my way." Alicia smiled softly. "Take your time. It's your life. I just want you to make the right choice." With that, Robert stood up, his face a mix of gratitude and determination. "Thank you again, Alicia. You've done more for me than you'll ever know." The days following Alicia's meeting with Robert were a blur of uncertainty. She had never expected her decision to confront him to lead to such a profound shift in her life. While she had walked into that restaurant, simply trying to do what felt right, she never anticipated that Robert's response would set off a chain of events that would change everything for her. The next morning, Alicia woke up to a flood of notifications. At first, she thought it was just the usual work-related messages. But as she scrolled through her phone, she noticed something that made her stop cold. There in her inbox was a message from Robert Hayes. "Alicia, I've been thinking about what you said. I've made some calls, and there's something I want to offer you. Meet me at the restaurant tonight at 7. I think you'll be surprised by what I have in mind." Alicia felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. What did he want now? What kind of offer could he be talking about? She couldn't help but wonder if he was about to ask for her help with the fallout from his breakup with Isabella, or if he had something else in mind entirely. Either way, Alicia knew this meeting was going to be life-changing. When she arrived at the restaurant that evening, Robert was already waiting for her at the same table where they had met the other night. This time there was no tension in the air, just a calm, almost quiet determination. As Alicia took her seat, Robert looked at her with a sense of purpose. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Alicia," he began, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of something deeper. "You were right to speak up, and I've realized that I've been going about a lot of things the wrong way, especially when it comes to my personal life. But more than that, I've been focusing too much on the wrong priorities. My business, my image. I've forgotten the things that really matter." Alicia was caught off guard. She had expected him to be apologetic, but not like this. Robert Hayes, the powerful CEO, was admitting that he had been wrong. In a world where pride and ego often ruled, this was a rare moment of vulnerability. Alicia sat back in her chair, listening intently as Robert continued. "After everything that happened with Isabella, I realized that I've been running away from the truth. I've been so focused on my empire, on building my wealth, that I've neglected the things that actually bring meaning to life, and that's why I'm here tonight. I need someone who isn't afraid to tell me the truth, someone who can help me see the world differently. And I believe you're that person." Alicia was stunned. She had always known that Robert was a successful businessman, but she hadn't expected this level of self-awareness. What was he asking for? Was he looking for advice? Was he seeking redemption? "What do you want from me, Robert?" Alicia asked, her voice cautious but curious. "I want you to help me," he replied. "Not with my business or my personal life, but with something more important. I want you to help me make the right decisions moving forward. I want you to be part of my team, not as a waitress, but as an advisor. I've seen how you see things, how you understand the world, and I think you're the kind of person I need in my corner. I'm offering you something that no one else can offer, complete autonomy, a place in my business and the freedom to do things your way." Alicia blinked, processing his words. She had never imagined anything like this. Robert was offering her a seat at the table, a chance to be part of something bigger than herself. But she wasn't sure if she was ready to dive into his world of wealth and corporate power. Was this really the right path for her? "I'm not sure what to say," Alicia admitted, her mind racing. "I've always been content doing things my own way. I've never wanted to get involved in something like this." Robert leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I understand that. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I just think you've got a unique perspective, and I want to give you the opportunity to use it. There's a position in my company, one that no one else has. It's an advisory role, but it's more than that. I want you to help me make decisions that will shape the future of my business. I want you to be a part of this." Alicia sat in silence for a moment, absorbing everything he had said. She had spent her life watching powerful people make decisions that affected millions of lives, but she had never considered being in the room where those decisions were made. Now Robert was offering her that chance. She couldn't deny the allure of the opportunity, but the question remained, was she ready for this? "Why me?" she finally asked, her voice a little softer. "Why would you want me in your company?" "I'm just a waitress." Robert smiled, his eyes glinting with the same sharpness that had made him a successful CEO. "You're not just anything, Alicia. You're someone who sees the world differently. You're not afraid to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. That's the kind of person I need, someone who isn't afraid to challenge me, to push me to think outside of the box. I respect that, and I think you'd be an invaluable asset to my team." Alicia didn't know what to say. She had never been in a situation like this before, where her voice and opinions could actually make a difference in the world. But the more Robert spoke, the more she began to understand that this was more than just an opportunity. It was a chance for her to shape her own destiny, to take control of her life in a way she had never done before. "I'll need time to think about it," she said finally. "This is a big decision." "I understand," Robert replied, standing up. "Take all the time you need. But just know this is the opportunity of a lifetime, and I'd love to have you on board." The following days were a whirlwind for Alicia. She could hardly sleep, her mind racing with thoughts of the offer Robert had made. It wasn't just a job opportunity. It was a life-changing decision. Alicia had worked in the restaurant industry for years, and while she had always done her best, she never imagined she would be faced with such a significant crossroads. The chance to work with Robert Hayes, a billionaire CEO, was a dream for most people. But it was also terrifying. The world of corporate power, business empires, and wealth was something Alicia had never navigated before. Could she truly fit into that world without losing herself? She spent hours talking to her mother, pouring out her thoughts, worries, and dreams. Her mother, as always, was the voice of reason. "Sweetheart, you've worked so hard to get where you are," her mother said, her voice soft but firm. "I've watched you struggle and succeed, but this is different. This isn't just about you. This is about where you want to go in life. Do you want to stay in the restaurant world, or do you want to be part of something bigger?" Alicia didn't have an immediate answer. She loved her job as a waitress, and it had been the backbone of her independence. It gave her the freedom to live life on her own terms, without being beholden to anyone. But at the same time, she couldn't ignore the opportunity Robert was offering. The chance to work with him was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She could help shape the future of his business, make decisions that affected thousands of people. But would she be ready for that responsibility? She walked the streets of the city, trying to clear her head. The busy streets, the bustling crowds, the city's relentless energy, it was all so familiar. But in her heart, Alicia knew that if she accepted Robert's offer, everything would change. She would no longer be just another waitress. She would be part of a world she had never thought possible for herself. A world where decisions were made in boardrooms, where people held the power to change entire industries. Could she handle that? As Alicia walked, she found herself gravitating toward the old park she used to visit when she was younger. It was a quiet place, far removed from the noise of the city. The air was cool, and the trees provided a sense of calm she hadn't felt in days. She sat on a bench, watching the leaves flutter in the wind, and for the first time in a while she allowed herself to think clearly. The more she thought about it, the more Alicia realized that this wasn't just about business. It was about her future, her growth, and the kind of life she wanted to lead. Could she continue working in the restaurant world, serving others while watching her dreams of something bigger slip away? Or could she take this risk, this opportunity, and carve out a path that was truly hers? Alicia had always been a fighter. She had built her life from the ground up, and she wasn't afraid to take risks. The more she thought about Robert's offer, the more she realized that this could be her chance to do something extraordinary. She didn't need to fit into anyone's mold or follow anyone's rules. She could create her own path, stay true to her values, and still make a difference in the world. As the sun began to set, Alicia stood up, her decision clear in her mind. She was going to accept Robert's offer, but not because of the money, the power, or the prestige. She was going to accept it because it was a chance for her to challenge herself, to step into a world she had never imagined, and to prove that she could succeed on her own terms. That evening, Alicia called Robert. "Robert," she said when he answered, her voice steady but filled with determination. "I've thought about it. I'm ready. I want to take you up on your offer." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Robert responded. "Are you sure, Alicia? This is a big step." "I'm sure," she replied. "I want to help you make a difference. But I need you to understand this isn't just about the job. It's about finding a way to make an impact. I won't do things just for the sake of power or money. I want to be part of something real." Robert's voice softened, as if he was impressed by her clarity. "I get it. And that's exactly why I want you on my team. You've got the vision and the integrity I need. Let's make something great happen." Alicia felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had made her decision, and now she was ready to step into a new chapter of her life. The next few days were filled with paperwork, meetings, and introductions to Robert's team. She was quickly immersed in the world of business, learning the ins and outs of corporate strategy, marketing, and decision-making. But Alicia wasn't just there to learn, she was there to contribute. She brought fresh ideas, a different perspective, and a commitment to staying true to herself and the values that had guided her throughout her life. As she worked alongside Robert and his team, Alicia began to see the impact she could make. She wasn't just a cog in the machine, she was part of something bigger. Her voice mattered, and her decisions were shaping the future of Robert's company. She was finding her place in the corporate world, but she was doing it her way. But Alicia also realized that this journey wasn't going to be without challenges. There would be moments of doubt, moments when she would question whether she had made the right choice. The corporate world was cutthroat, and she knew that there would be people who tried to undermine her or dismiss her ideas. But Alicia was ready. She had already proven to herself that she could stand up for what was right, and now she was going to prove that she could thrive in this new world. The first few months were a blur of meetings, decisions, and late nights at the office. But with each passing day, Alicia grew more confident in her role. She wasn't just there to support Robert's vision, she was helping to shape it, and as they worked together, their professional relationship began to evolve. They were no longer just CEO and advisor. They were partners, working side by side to build something that would change the landscape of the business world. As Alicia stood in her office late one night, looking out over the city skyline, she realized that this was only the beginning. She had come a long way from the restaurant, where she had served wealthy customers and overheard conversations. Now she was sitting at the table, making decisions that mattered. Alicia had found her place in the world, and she was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few months were both exhilarating and exhausting for Alicia. The corporate world had proven to be far more complex than she had ever imagined, with endless meetings, complex negotiations, and a constant pressure to deliver results. But with every challenge she faced, she grew stronger, more capable, and more confident in her role. She had always been driven, but now she was tapping into a new level of determination, one that came from knowing that she wasn't just working for herself, but for something far greater. She was working to make a meaningful impact in the business world, and each day was an opportunity to prove that she belonged. But as Alicia began to settle into her new role, she also began to realize that things weren't as simple as they appeared. While Robert had kept his word, offering her the autonomy she needed to make decisions, the corporate world was not without its own set of challenges. There were moments when Alicia felt as though she was walking a tightrope, balancing the expectations of the board with her desire to stay true to her values. One evening, as she was leaving the office, she received a call from Robert. His voice, usually calm and composed, had an edge of urgency to it. "Alicia," he said, his tone serious. "We need to talk." She could sense that something was off. "What's going on?" she asked, her heart picking up speed. "It's about the latest project we're working on," he explained. "There's a group of investors who are pushing for us to take the company in a direction that I'm not comfortable with. It's about maximizing profits, putting short-term financial gain above the long-term sustainability of the company. I don't want to compromise our values for the sake of a quick buck." Alicia felt a knot form in her stomach. She knew exactly what Robert was talking about. The pressure from investors to prioritize profits over integrity was something that every company faced. It was the same kind of pressure that had led many successful businesses down a path they would later regret. "I agree with you," Alicia said, her voice firm. "We can't sacrifice what we believe in for the sake of short-term success, but we also need to find a way to balance the needs of the company with our values. We can't ignore the financial side of things either. If we do, we risk losing everything we've worked for." Robert sighed. "I know, that's the problem. I'm trying to find a way to keep our integrity intact while also meeting the demands of the investors. But it's a delicate balance." Alicia paused for a moment, thinking about the situation. She had always believed in the power of integrity, in doing what was right even when it was hard. But she also understood the pressures of running a business. It wasn't enough to have strong values. You also had to be able to navigate the complexities of the business world without compromising your principles. "I think we need to start by being transparent with the investors," Alicia said, her voice calm but resolute. "We can't be afraid to tell them that we're not willing to make decisions that go against our values. If they're truly invested in the long-term success of the company, they'll respect that. But if they're only interested in making a quick profit, then maybe they're not the right partners for us." Robert was silent for a moment, clearly weighing her words. Finally he spoke. "You're right," he said, his voice thoughtful. "I've been so focused on appeasing them that I've lost sight of what really matters. Let's do it. Let's be transparent and tell them exactly where we stand." The conversation ended with a sense of resolution. Robert and Alicia had decided to take a stand, one that would define the future of their company. It wasn't going to be easy, but they both knew that the only way forward was to remain true to their values. They weren't just in business to make money. They were in it to make a difference, to create something that would last. The following week, Robert and Alicia met with the investors. It was a tense meeting, one that could have easily gone sideways. The investors, hungry for returns, were not pleased with the idea of prioritizing values over profits. They argued that it was a risky move, one that could cost them in the short term. But Robert and Alicia stood their ground. "We understand your concerns," Robert said, his voice firm, "but we're not willing to compromise our values for the sake of immediate profits. If that's not something you can support, then we'll part ways. We're in this for the long haul." Alicia watched as the room fell silent. She could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the decision they had just made, but she also felt something else, something powerful. This was the moment when everything changed. This was the moment when they chose integrity over convenience, long-term success over short-term gain. After what seemed like an eternity, one of the investors spoke up. "You're right," he said, his tone begrudging but respectful. "We'll support your decision, but you'd better be right about this." Alicia's heart raced. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. They had made a bold choice, one that would define the future of the company. It wasn't just about business. It was about staying true to who they were and what they believed in. As the meeting came to a close, Robert turned to Alicia. His face softened, and for the first time in a while he looked relieved. "We did it," he said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "Thank you, Alicia. This wouldn't have been possible without you." Alicia smiled back, feeling a sense of pride she hadn't felt before. She wasn't just a part of the company. She was shaping its future. She had found her place and she had found her voice. The next few weeks were filled with more tough decisions, but Robert and Alicia continued to navigate the complexities of the business world with integrity and vision. They built their company on the principles they believed in, and slowly but surely the world began to take notice. Their success wasn't defined by profits alone. It was defined by their commitment to making a positive impact, to creating something that would last long after they were gone. And Alicia, she had finally found her place. Not as a waitress, not as an outsider, but as someone who had helped shape the future of a company and made a lasting difference. She had proven to herself and to everyone else that she had the power to change the world, one decision at a time. If you were blown away by Alicia's journey and Robert's unexpected response, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more incredible stories that challenge the odds and inspire change. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Could you have done the same in Alicia's shoes? Until next time, keep believing in yourself and always trust your instincts. See you in the next video.